Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And of course, World of Warships patch 0.8.0 has officially landed. And with that, we have the CV rework and we also have the new AA system in place. So first things first, what do y'all think of the new systems? Let me know in the comments section below. Of course, I will now talk to you about my own experiences. So yesterday I played a mix of Haku and Midway games. This is one of those Haku games. And I've got to say that, yep, they've made some small improvements here and there, of course, with actual players playing and the skill system working. AA has become, at times, incredibly lethal and at times incredibly impotent. It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. And I have to say that my objections to the way the AA system has not changed with this full release. I still don't think this is a good AA system, right? In the original CV, the problem was A, being sort of all or nothing in terms of being ability to kill stuff. Sometimes it kills a lot of planes, sometimes it doesn't really do all that much. In the new system, it seems to be very, very similar, to be honest. At times, you can go through an entire AA cruiser's AA, like I just did there with the Wooster, and basically lose nothing. And at other times, you can go through a destroyer's AA and lose all of your squadrons because the flak bursts like right in front of you and you can't dodge. And this whole AA system, for me, is just not really all that fun. I mean, once again, your interaction with AA is you versus some sort of AI-controlled RNG thing. It's just not all that great. Furthermore, on the defending side, when you're playing a surface ship, it's also quite frustrating because, again, you could play a full-spec AA cruiser and get hit by enemy planes and not shoot a single one of them down. By the way, I did that again in that attack run against that same booster. Go through all the AA and basically not suffer any losses on my first strike. Furthermore, there's another really interesting issue, at least from a CV player perspective. Back in the day when you're playing CV in the old RTS style, there were certain ships you knew were vulnerable to you, right? You'd be like, oh, I see a Bismarck, that thing doesn't have very good AA, so I'm going to go strike that Bismarck instead of, let's say, strike, let's say that North Carolina, something that has strong AA. In this version, it seems to have just kind of, this whole what ships are good at what is kind of gone out the window. You could go up against, ships that were traditionally really good at AA, so like Worcester, Minotaur, Montana even, right? Ships that you normally would have stayed away from as a carrier, ships that used to offer a zone of safety. Well, with the way things are now, you could actually get your way in there and attack those ships sometimes, as long as, I guess, RNG works with you. It's hard to say exactly what happens when you can do that. And at the same time, there are other times when you run into ships that aren't supposed to have the world's best AA, and suddenly their AA is rocking, and they're really hurting your aircraft because they're putting up a lot of flak bursts. It's just a really odd scenario in the way I'm looking at it. Destroyer A is incredibly potent at times. Like yesterday I had quite a few times where I would say Destroyer A was the one that basically blacked my whole squadron out of the sky. Mind you, those destroyers were in smoke too, which is another one of those things where it's like, so they're in smoke, but their A is, it doesn't really make much sense. And then what this does, and by the way, and this has actually effects on gameplay, one of the problems that this causes is it makes the whole CV play thing far less predictable, if you want to use the word for it. I'm not sure that's the perfect word, but that's the word I'm going to go with for now. And what I mean by that is, in the past, where if you were to see, like, let's say, a Friedrich the Grosser off by themselves as a carrier, you'd be like, perfect, that FDR screwed up, it's my turn to bomb them. In this current iteration, it's more like, I'm not sure, because maybe the FDR's AA suddenly decides it's going to wreck my airplanes and put flak bursts in places where I can't really dodge them. I don't know, it just makes the gameplay that much more random, if that's the way to put it. And that's not exactly good, because there is a certain degree of predictability that you do want in a game, because then you can make decisions and base things on that degree of predictability, shall we say. So my own experience with CVs was a pretty mixed bag yesterday. I had some games that were pretty good, and I had some games that were so awful that you were just like, I can't believe I'm playing a tier 10 ship, right? Because there are some games where, and actually with most of my games, I was able to get the first strike off pretty clean, usually without any losses, but then forget the second strike, because by the time I would get my planes turned around, have basically nothing left, right? And that's also because Wargaming insisted for some bizarre reason that when you decide to execute an attack run with like 3 aircraft, the entire squadron would follow you in and take damage along the way. Don't ask me, right? That was one of the things that we raised, and they decided to go ahead with it. I don't really know why. So after that, and then, like as I said, the really frustrating AA. And by the way, if you want to dodge AA, what you do is you put on a gentle bank, and then you boost a little, slow down, bank a little bit more in another direction, boost a little, and sort of rinse, repeat that, right? That's really what you're doing. So anyways, like I said, most of the times I can get off one strike, but then if I try to turn around and start getting other strikes in, sometimes I could do it, and sometimes no. Whole squadrons just get vaporized off the face of the planet. So what I ended up doing was this strategy. And this strategy is, I call it the plane vomiting strategy. Basically, the point is to vomit out as many planes as possible and attack as many times as you can, but only on the first strike. Because what you want to do is, instead of focusing on survivability, like screw taking plane HP, right? Go for maximum speed, maximum cruise speed, maximum return speed, maximum boost speed, maximum everything speed related, right? And then what you do is you basically go in for the first strike only. You'll notice that I'm losing the majority of my planes here on the second strike, right? That's one of the ways to illustrate it to you. You'll notice that I turned the squadron around and I was losing most of my planes on that second leg. So instead of trying to do that second leg, what you do is you just go in, execute your first strike, and recall the entire squadron. Because as soon as you recall it by pressing the F key, the squadrons go into high altitude and they no longer take AA damage. And so as long as you position your carrier correctly, which is aka close enough to the front lines, you get your planes back really quickly. You cycle them very rapidly, right? Ow, that AA burst, ow. And so what you do is you don't really worry about targets that are really far away, just worry about targets that are closer to you, right? And then you just dodge their AA, like, I said, with that sort of bank, boost, kind of that strategy. And then you basically go in there, attack them, and recall the entire squadron, launch the next type of attack plane. All the attack planes are relatively easy to use. I mean, as long as you figure out how to aim them, most of them are pretty easy to use. But, like, don't do this, right? You'll notice that at times you'll see me trying to slowly turn the planes around to see if I can get a second strike. Don't bother. It doesn't work until much later on. Much later on, when ships become isolated, A isn't so strong, it's a lot easier to do. At the beginning, you just kind of rinse and repeat the strategy over and over again. Just go after targets, get through the AA, bomb them once, and that's it. And, you just recall the entire squadron. I did make a mistake here. You'll notice I went into a whole group of ships. They had very clustered AA, tried to do a dive bombing run. Made that mistake because you'll probably notice that my team isn't doing so hot, and I actually panicked. I was trying to get something going. Shouldn't have done that, to be honest. Should have just taken that squadron, focused on something like closer to me, brought that squadron back right after the first attack, sent out the next thing. And it actually works. I mean, it's shocking, but it actually works, because as long as you position your carrier close enough, let's say 12-13 kilometers behind cover if you can, to your targets, you can get one squadron over there, attack, forget, trying to get them turned around, because it actually takes quite a bit of time. Just press the F key, bring them back, send out the next squadron, and you'll be there in no time at all, just because your planes are faster. And of course, like I said, focus on plane speed instead of HP, because who cares about survivability if you don't lose much on your first run and you almost bring back the entire squadron, right? Because as soon as they come back to the ship, they land, all those planes come right back onto the deck and they become full HP again. So by using this strategy correctly, you essentially have no worries about the number of planes that you have ready. You don't really have to worry about the whole reserve thing, because normally if you lose a squadron, you basically gonna take forever to get another squadron ready. This way, you don't really have to worry about it. Furthermore, when you run into a situation where you've only got a couple of airplanes, like I did because I lost that whole squadron of fighters when I was trying to do the second attack on the Worcester, well, it doesn't matter, because as soon as I attack, I bring the squadron back, and I'm only using like 3 planes out of the squadron anyways, right? So they'll come right back, they'll pop back on the deck, and I will have all of them ready to go again. So as long as you have enough planes for sort of one attack wave, you can just keep launching because that's all you're going to be doing. You just wait until much later on in the game, and then you get on to the second, third attack runs. I think I'll do that a little bit later on when you'll sort of see the enemy ships sort of more petered out, where there's fewer of them. You know, I think there was one situation where there was just basically a Musashi by himself, and I would give like a second attack run to that Musashi after the initial attack run, right? Then that's when you would do it. But when there was a lot of ships around, you can just do single attacks and you don't have to really worry too much about AA, as long as you do this very gentle little bank, boost, slow down, bank, boost, slow down, and you're kind of changing course, changing speeds, and that really seems to throw off the AA big time. But of course, one of the other things I also did notice is that you actually lose a majority of your aircraft when you've actually gone past your attack run and you're actually trying to get them to circle around. And I think part of the reason why that happens is that when you're approaching a ship and the ship is in front of you, you can see the ship's position. You can say, okay, the ship is there, I'm going to come in, and I'm going to do this kind of maneuver, then I'm going to attack the ship. Furthermore, when the ship is firing off its AA, you're seeing the tracers coming here and here and here, and you're seeing where those tracers are, and you're saying, okay, I can anticipate that there's going to be a flak burst here, so I'm going to bank a little bit the other way, then I'm going to boost the other way, okay, I see a little bit more tracers there, now I'm going to try to do this, and then you can actually work in a pattern. Where the issue is with that kind of way, when you're approaching something, you have time, right? You have that little bit of reaction time to be able to deal with the A. But when you're actually turning away, that's really where the problems begin. Because as you're turning away, you lose visual reference to where the ship is. Now, the ship starts firing AA at you, and instead of being able to say, okay, here's the tracer, there's where the next flak burst is going to be, so now I can actually plan and maybe dodge it. Now the flak burst appears in front of you, and now you're trying to react within human reaction times to that flak burst, which, by the way, the fastest that a human being can actually respond to any kind of stimuli is 150 milliseconds. And that's purely like a reflex response. That's just like, oh yes, there's something there. That's 150 milliseconds for your brain to be able to process that. For your brain to process something and then come up with an actual decision like, I need you to do this, typically takes about 350, 400 milliseconds, which when you consider the speed of the aircraft that's moving and the flak that appears in front of you, sometimes gives you absolutely no time at all, and that's why you end up running into those flak bursts. It's actually science in that regard, right? Sometimes you just can't react fast enough, and of course that reaction speed also tends to deteriorate with age as well. So that's one of those things where I think this strategy, when, especially at the earlier stages when there's a lot more AA and ships have a lot more of their AA mounts, this strategy works really well because, you see, I'm approaching the ship right now. Now I can predict where the AA is going to be. Perfect. So now I'm going to be able to get in here, make my strike, and as soon as that strike is done, I will just bring the planes home because, again, placement of your own carrier is quite important, right? If you get the placement right, and of course, by the way, the autopilot never works the way you want it to. It drives me insane, but it just doesn't really work. But again, if you place your carrier correctly, your planes take off, get to target is really, really quick. So you don't even have to worry about it, right? Because turning the aircraft around and trying to get relined up for another attack takes probably as much time as just launching the next squadron. So why not do this? Because you can minimize your plane losses, never have to worry about really losing aircraft, and you can just keep bringing these attacks, right? Cycle them one after another. Of course, I did mention later on in the game when the A is kind of more dispersed and there's a lot less of it, you can turn your aircraft around and of course go for the second attack run. So in this case, this North Carolina is pretty much by himself, doesn't really have too much help except for that Minotaur, which is a little bit further away. Alright, I'll go for the second attack, but do I really want those remaining aircraft to run into that Minotaur's AA? The answer is probably no, so what do? Press the F key, bring them back, launch the next squadron, which is these rocket planes again, right? Because those planes have come back. Remember, focusing on plane speed is really important, and CV positioning. Wonderful, get this rocket aircraft out, and it's sufficient aircraft for a single attack run, right? Or even two if I decide that didn't take too much damage. Fantastic, get my rocket planes in here, I'm going to finish this NC. And there it goes. Alright, now, do I really want to go after the Minotaur? Take a look at how many aircraft I have. Got 5. They're reasonably healthy still. Okay, I think I'll chance it. I'll chance this attack on the Minotaur, see if I can get a little bit of damage before I bring up the next squadron. Okay. Bank a little bit, dodge that A, execute the attack run, bring the aircraft in, launch the rockets. All right, bring the aircraft back. Don't need them to be out there anymore. And you'll see that I'm getting some aircraft back as well. Maybe not as big of a squadron as I would have wanted, but hey, you know, 3 planes back. I've got 4 on the deck right now. That's sufficient for another run if I need those rocket planes, right? Okay, get these torpedo bombers out. Not a full squadron, but it doesn't matter. I'm only really going for 1 attack run again. Bring these planes in, execute the run. I do like the Hakur use torpedo bombers a hell of a lot more than the Midways. The reticle shrinks rapidly, so you're actually able to get accurate torpedo groupings. Midway, it's nearly always a fan attack because Midway really requires you to set up and then fly in a straight line towards your target without moving your mouse at all, which is ridiculous considering that, you know, if you do that, you're going to lose your aircraft. So much better, you know, as a Haku, right? Because Haku planes, you know, you get them in, you get them set up, and you just go, right? Again, with this Minotaur, I have enough with these torpedo bombers to be able to launch the second strike, right? And you'll see it, right? Even a banking attack. Reticle shrinks enough, so I'm able to go right here and then bloop, drop my torpedoes, bring the whole squadron back. And you'll notice I have 8 rocket planes ready and available again, so hey, if I need it, I can launch them again and attack that Minotaur had the Minotaur not died. So yeah, that's sort of the gist of the strategy, right? Launch planes, get 1 attack by, you know, dodging and weaving through the first wave of AA, fire off your weapons, bring the squadron back, launch the next one, keep, rinse, and repeat the attack. Now, this has actually some other psychological impacts on the enemy too. If you're an enemy ship and you're constantly getting bombed, like let's say the Wooster in the early stages of the game, and you can't actually shoot down planes, it really messes you up. Like, it actually affects your own confidence too, because you're going like, what the hell is wrong with my ship? Why aren't any of these planes dying? Why are they constantly able to attack me without any losses? It's super demoralizing, right? Second, the other thing is as well, you can actually bait a lot of ships into wasting their like defensive fire consumables and things like that, because you know, you get in there, they see you as a threat, they pop their DFA, it doesn't matter, you just did your first run and you're out of there, right? And all of your planes come back home. So it's a crazy little strategy, but you know, it actually does work in the way the game is right now. I mean, who knows what'll happen later, like maybe they'll change some stuff, but for now this actually works. And you know, I'm probably going to go back on to the game later tonight, give it another go. And finally, you know, this game ended up being about 155,000 damage, I think, in the Haku, so it was an okay damage number. I don't have the final result screen, unfortunately, because the game decided that it needed to do a server swap, so didn't get the end result screen. So this is the best I can leave you with, the thing on the top right corner. So folks, take care of yourselves, have yourselves a good one, and I will see all of you on the high seas.